The battlefield was no longer alive with shouting voices or clashing weapons. It was quiet now, too quiet. Smoke rose from the broken ground. The smell of burned metal and blood filled the air. The human soldier, Captain Ryan Hale, walked slowly across the ruins, his boots sinking into the mud where fire had turned soil into ash. He had seen many battles, but this one felt different. The silence pressed against his ears, heavy and strange. It was the kind of silence that came after death, when even the birds and insects refused to return. Ryan gripped his rifle tighter. Every shadow looked like danger. Every echo of falling rock made his heart pound faster. All around him lay the remains of machines, broken tanks, shattered drones, alien armor scattered like discarded shells, some of it still glowing faintly with strange blue light. Ryan kept moving, his breath slow, his eyes searching. Then he heard it. Metal footsteps, slow but heavy, not human. The sound echoed against the ruins like thunder rolling through empty halls. Ryan froze, his instincts told him to hide. But his pride told him to stand. He turned toward the sound, and there she was. An alien warrior stepped out of the smoke, tall and armored from head to toe. Her black plating covered in glowing marks, her helmet shaped like a predator's face. She carried a blade as long as Ryan's arm. Though her steps were unsteady, she was wounded yet still powerful. Ryan raised his rifle, his finger tight on the trigger. His mind screamed to shoot, but something in her movement stopped him. She didn't raise her weapon. She didn't charge. Instead, she paused. Her helmet turned toward him, the glow of her eyes staring. And in that stare there was no hatred, only hesitation. For a moment, time felt frozen. The human and the alien warrior standing in the ruins of war, weapons ready but unmoving. Ryan's breath grew shallow. Sweat slid down his cheek. His thoughts raced. Why didn't she attack? Why didn't she finish what her people had started? The alien warrior tilted her head slightly. As if studying him, her blade lowered a little, not much, but enough for Ryan to notice. It wasn't a gesture of surrender, but it also wasn't the gesture of an enemy ready to kill. His heart beat louder. His eyes narrowed. "You gonna make a move?" Ryan whispered under his breath. Though his voice was swallowed by the smoke and silence, she did not answer. Her voice did not come through the helmet, but Ryan saw the faintest tremor in her stance. Her legs were strong but tired. Her chest plate burned with scars, her breathing heavy behind the mask. Something inside Ryan shifted. He had seen enemies fall before, but this was different. She wasn't just another nameless alien soldier. There was a story hidden in her silence, a secret behind her choice not to strike. Still, danger hung in the air like a knife. Ryan knew one wrong move could end him. He had to choose, to pull the trigger and end the mystery, or hold back and see what truth lived behind that armor. The wind howled across the battlefield, carrying dust and sparks through the broken air. The ruins groaned as metal towers collapsed in the distance. Still, the two stood locked in silence, predator and prey, yet neither willing to act. Then faintly a sound broke the air, a small crackle of her helmet's voice filter. She spoke at last, her words soft but sharp. "Why didn't you run?" she asked, her voice carrying both challenge and confusion. Ryan blinked, his rifle still steady, his lips pressed tight. He had no answer for her question. Maybe he didn't know himself. Maybe something inside him refused to turn away. Maybe this was fate. The alien warrior shifted again, but this time her blade pointed down toward the ground, not at him. The glow in her visor dimmed for a moment. As if her strength was fading, Ryan lowered his rifle just a little, his hands trembling at the risk, but his gut told him the truth. If she wanted him dead, he would already be gone. For the first time since the war began, Ryan felt something dangerous, not fear, not anger, but curiosity. He wanted to know who this warrior was, why she had hesitated, why she looked at him not as an enemy but as something else. The silence stretched longer, heavier, but now it was no longer the silence of death. It was the silence of a question left unanswered, and deep in his heart, Ryan knew this moment was the beginning of something that would change everything. The storm rolled in without warning, thick black clouds twisting above the battlefield. Lightning split the sky with a deafening crack. Rain poured down in heavy sheets, washing ash and blood into rivers that cut across the ruins. Captain Ryan Hale pulled his jacket tighter, his rifle slung across his shoulder, but the storm made it impossible to see. Through the blur of rain and smoke, he caught sight of movement again. The armored alien warrior, her tall frame shining as the storm lashed against her armor. For a moment, Ryan thought she would disappear into the chaos, but then a thunderous boom shook the ground. A nearby tower collapsed, sending waves of dust and fire into the air. Ryan stumbled back, searching for cover. his boots slipping in the mud. And that was when he saw it. A half-buried bunker, its metal door torn open by an explosion. Shadows waiting inside. Without thinking, he rushed toward it, his lungs burning from smoke and rain. He reached the doorway, heart pounding, but froze when another figure stepped into the entrance from the other side. It was her, the alien warrior. Both of them had chosen the same place to hide. For a long moment, they stared at each other through the curtain of rain, her visor glowing faintly in the dark. Ryan's rifle hung ready in his grip, but neither moved. The storm above roared like a beast, thunder shaking the broken earth. Finally, she lowered her blade slightly and stepped inside. Ryan hesitated, then followed. The bunker was damp and cold, its walls cracked, its lights flickering weakly. Broken crates and shattered consoles lay scattered across the floor, dust mixed with rainwater dripping through the ceiling. The silence between them felt louder than the storm outside. Ryan sat down on a bent metal beam, keeping his rifle across his knees. She stayed near the wall, still in her armor, her breathing deep and heavy. For a while, neither spoke. The only sound was the storm hammering the bunker walls. At last, Ryan broke the silence, his voice low but firm. "You had a chance to kill me back there," he said. "But you didn't," her visor tilted toward him. The glowing slit staring without blinking. Then a soft crackle came from her helmet, her voice filtered but clear. "And you had a chance to shoot me," she replied, her tone sharp. "But you didn't," Ryan smirked faintly, though his heart was still pounding. "Maybe I'm tired of killing," he muttered. Her helmet turned away, but not before he noticed a small tremor in her shoulders, as if the words had struck something deep. Time passed slowly. The storm raged outside, but inside the bunker it was only them. Enemies forced into uneasy silence. Ryan studied her armor more closely now. He noticed scorch marks across her chest plate, dents along her arms, and strange glowing lines running under the surface like veins. Finally, she spoke again, her voice quieter this time. "Do you know why we fight?" she asked. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Because your people invaded ours," he shot back. Her head turned, the glowing visor fixing on him. But instead of anger, there was something else in her tone, something almost like sorrow. "That is the story you were told," she said slowly. "But it is not the whole truth." Ryan leaned forward, suspicion burning in his chest. "Then tell me," he challenged. She did not answer at once. Instead, she lifted a hand to her helmet, her fingers brushing the scarred plating. For a moment, Ryan thought she might remove it, but then she lowered her hand again, as if afraid. "You wouldn't believe me," she whispered, her voice trembling just enough for Ryan to notice. Ryan frowned, but inside curiosity gnawed at him. This warrior, this enemy, she was hiding something important, and his instincts told him it mattered. The rain slowed, thunder fading into the distance. The storm was moving on, but the tension inside the bunker only grew stronger. Ryan leaned back against the wall, his eyes never leaving her. "Then prove me wrong," he said quietly. "I've got nothing else to lose." Her helmet tilted down, and for a moment she said nothing. The silence stretched so long that Ryan almost gave up waiting. But then softly, almost reluctantly, she spoke. "We bleed like you." Ryan blinked at her words, his mind racing. At first it sounded meaningless, but then he remembered the wound across her side, the faint crimson dripping through her armor plates during their standoff. It hadn't been strange blue alien blood. It had been red, human red. His throat tightened, his grip on the rifle slipping slightly. "What are you saying?" he asked slowly. Her voice was barely a whisper now, but each word carried the weight of truth. "We are not what you think we are." Ryan's eyes widened, his pulse quickened. The storm outside faded into silence, but inside the bunker, a new storm was rising. For the first time since the war began, he realized he was not staring at just an enemy. He was staring at a secret, a mystery wrapped in armor, and it was only the beginning. The night dragged on inside the broken bunker. The storm outside had passed, leaving only the sound of dripping water and distant echoes of shifting ruins. Captain Ryan Hale sat with his back against the wall, his rifle across his lap, his eyes fixed on the armored alien across from him. She hadn't moved much, her helmet still hiding her face, her blade resting by her side, but Ryan noticed her breathing was uneven, deeper than before, each inhale rattling faintly. She was wounded worse than she wanted him to believe. For hours, neither of them spoke, the silence thick, but the weight of her earlier words still pressed on Ryan's mind. "We bleed like you." Those 4 words had twisted something inside him. made him see her not only as an enemy but as something more. Finally, he broke the silence, his voice low and steady. "You said you bleed like us," he reminded her. "Prove it." Her helmet turned toward him. The glowing visor staring, she didn't answer right away. But Ryan noticed her hand clenched tighter around her side, her armor shifting with the movement. At last she spoke, her voice filtered but soft. "You don't want to see," Ryan leaned forward, determination in his eyes. "I've seen worse," he muttered. The warrior was still for a long time, the silence dragging so long that Ryan thought she would refuse. But then, slowly, she raised her hand to her helmet, her fingers pressing a release latch hidden in the side. With a hiss, the seal broke, steam spilling into the air. Ryan's breath caught as she pulled the helmet away. For the first time, he saw her face. Her skin was pale, not gray or scaled like he had expected, but smooth, with faint silver patterns glowing across her cheeks like delicate tattoos. Her eyes were sharp, amber-colored, glowing faintly in the dim light. But what struck him most was the pain in them, a pain that went far deeper than her wounds. She exhaled slowly, her breath shaking, then placed the helmet on the ground beside her. "Now you see," she whispered. Ryan stared, his chest tightening. She didn't look like the monster the war had painted. She looked young, almost human in some ways, but with an alien beauty that felt both dangerous and fragile. Her hand moved to her side, and Ryan finally noticed the blood seeping through the cracks of her armor, crimson red staining the plates. His heart skipped. It was true, she bled like him. He set his rifle down slowly and leaned closer. "You're hurt," he said, his tone sharper than he meant. "Why didn't you say anything?" She turned her head away, shame flickering in her eyes. "Because weakness is death," she answered softly. "My kind are not allowed to show pain." Ryan's jaw tightened, anger flashing inside him, but not at her, at whoever had forced her to believe that. "Your kind," he echoed. "You mean your people? Your army?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't answer, but her silence was louder than words. Ryan looked at her again. Really looked. The armor that had once made her seem untouchable now looked like a cage, every plate heavy, every scar across it telling a story. She wasn't fighting because she wanted to. She was fighting because she had no choice. He sat back, running a hand across his face, his thoughts spinning. "So what are you?" he asked quietly. "Warrior, prisoner, slave?" Her eyes flickered with something, fear, anger, sorrow, before she finally whispered, "All of them." The words hit him like a blade. Ryan swallowed hard, the bunker suddenly colder. He had suspected she carried secrets. But this was more than he imagined. She shifted, removing one of the chest plates that had been dented by a blast underneath. Ryan saw her skin scarred with strange symbols burned into her flesh, brands carved in glowing ink. His stomach twisted at the sight. "They mark us," she said, her voice breaking for the first time. "To remind us who we belong to." Ryan clenched his fists, rage burning through him. Not at her, but at the unseen masters who had done this. "That's not belonging," he said sharply. "That's chains." Her amber eyes locked on him, wide with surprise, maybe even hope. As if no one had ever spoken those words to her before. The silence returned, but now it felt different. No longer heavy with distrust, but charged with something new, something fragile. Ryan reached into his pack, pulling out a torn cloth. He slid it across the floor toward her. "At least stop the bleeding," he muttered. For a moment she didn't move, as if she couldn't believe the offer. Then slowly, she took the cloth and pressed it against her wound, her hands trembling. The human and the alien sat there, both wounded, both enemies by war's command. Yet in that dark bunker, the first cracks had formed in the armor that divided them. Ryan leaned back against the wall, his eyes heavy but alert, his voice low. "You don't have to carry it alone," he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he meant the wound or the truth inside her. She glanced at him, her lips parting slightly. But no words came. Instead, she lowered her gaze, clutching the cloth tighter. Her silence was no longer a shield. It was a confession. And in that moment, Ryan understood. This was only the beginning of something far greater than war. Something that could tear apart everything he thought he knew. The bunker was cold and heavy with silence. The storm outside had passed, but tension still lingered in the air. Captain Ryan Hale sat against the cracked wall, his rifle leaning close, his eyes never far from the alien warrior across the room. She sat with her helmet off now, her pale skin glowing faintly in the dim light, the silver lines across her face shimmering like hidden rivers. She pressed the cloth he had given her against her wound, her amber eyes lowered, her expression unreadable. Ryan watched her closely, waiting. because he knew she carried a truth too heavy for words. Then the faint whir of a drone echoed in the distance, the sound sharp and mechanical. Ryan stiffened, his hand moving to his rifle. The alien warrior's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. She knew that sound better than he did. "They're searching," she whispered, her voice trembling with urgency. "If they find us, we're both dead," Ryan cursed under his breath, his pulse quickening. "Then we stay quiet," he said, pressing himself lower against the wall. But the drone's hum grew louder, closer, its searchlight sweeping across the ruins outside the bunker. Ryan knew if the light touched the broken doorway it would reveal them. He looked at her, and to his surprise she was already moving. She rose shakily to her feet, her armor groaning under the strain with swift hands. She began unfastening the plates across her chest and shoulders, letting them fall piece by piece onto the bunker floor. The sound soft but sharp in the silence. Ryan's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" he hissed. Her gaze flicked to him, fierce but afraid. "Your machines detect armor metal," she whispered. "If I keep it on, they'll find us." Ryan's throat tightened. He knew she was right, but the sight of her stripping away the black plates one by one unsettled him. The armor had made her seem untouchable, invincible, but now as each piece fell away, he saw what the armor had been hiding. When the last chest plate clattered to the ground, Ryan froze, his breath caught in his throat. Her body was scarred, marked with burns and glowing symbols carved deep into her skin, not battle scars but brands, chains in the form of wounds. Ryan felt a chill crawl through his chest. She caught his stare and quickly turned away. Shame in her eyes, her arms crossed as if to hide herself. But the truth was already revealed. "You're not just a soldier," Ryan whispered, his voice shaking with anger and disbelief. You're a slave," she finished for him, her voice breaking, the word trembling in the air like shattered glass. Ryan clenched his fists, fury boiling inside, not at her, but at the ones who had done this, the ones who had chained her inside that armor, forced her to fight. "They took us young," she said softly, her eyes far away. "They train us, they carve us. They say we belong to the war, we are not free. We never were." Ryan swallowed hard, the weight of her confession pressing heavy on him. "So all this time," he muttered, "we've been fighting slaves." "Not soldiers," she nodded faintly, her amber eyes glistening in the dim light. "We wear the armor because it hides what we are," she said. "If your people saw us like this, they would know the truth." Ryan leaned forward, his voice fierce. "Then why are you telling me now?" Her gaze met his, steady but fragile. "Because you saw me bleed red," she whispered. "And you didn't kill me." The words struck deep. Ryan felt something shift inside him. He wasn't sure what, but he knew this moment mattered. More than the war, more than orders outside. The drone's hum passed by, its light sweeping across the ruins before fading into the distance. The danger was gone for now, but inside the bunker, a greater danger lingered, the truth. Ryan exhaled slowly, his eyes never leaving her scarred form. "You can't go back to them," he said. "Not after this." Her lips tightened, sorrow etched across her face. "If they find me without the armor, they'll kill me," she admitted. "And if your people find me like this, they'll kill me too." Ryan's chest tightened. He understood now she wasn't safe with her people, and she wasn't safe with his either. She was trapped in between, caught in chains no one else could see. He stood, moving closer, lowering his rifle to the ground, his voice steady. "Then maybe you're not alone anymore." Her eyes widened slightly, shock flickering across her face. For a long moment she said nothing, her scars glowing faintly as if pulsing with the rhythm of her heart. Finally she whispered, "Why would you risk yourself for me?" Ryan stared at her, his jaw tight. "Because I don't follow chains," he said. "I break them." The silence that followed was not heavy this time. It was alive, filled with the weight of choice, of change. The alien warrior stood there vulnerable, her armor scattered on the ground, her scars revealed, and for the first time, she did not look like an enemy. She looked like a secret that could change everything. Ryan knew the truth could destroy him if he carried it. But in his heart he also knew this was a truth worth protecting, no matter the cost. The bunker felt smaller now, as if the truth itself had squeezed the walls tighter around them. Ryan stared at the alien warrior standing without her armor, her scars glowing faintly in the flickering light, her eyes sharp but uncertain. She had shown him the truth, and now the weight of it pressed against his chest. She looked down, her voice quiet but steady. "You cannot tell anyone what you saw," she whispered. "If your commanders know, I will die. If my masters know, I will suffer worse than death." Ryan clenched his fists, his jaw tight. He could hear the storm still rumbling faintly outside, but it was nothing compared to the storm inside him. He had a choice. He could survive by leaving her behind, or he could risk everything by protecting her secret. He took a deep breath, his voice low. "And if I do keep your secret," he asked, "what then? What happens to you?" Her amber eyes lifted to meet his, and for the first time, he saw the fragile hope hidden beneath the hardness. "Then maybe," she whispered, "I can be free." The words struck deep. Ryan felt his heart twist. Freedom, the one thing every soldier fought for. And yet here she was, a warrior bound in chains, dreaming of something so simple. He paced across the bunker, his boots echoing against the cracked floor, his thoughts a storm of conflict if he told the truth. He would be hailed as a hero for uncovering the weakness of the enemy, but she would be executed if he stayed silent. He would carry the weight of a secret that could change the war. Ryan stopped and looked back at her, his voice steady now. "You said weakness is death," he muttered. "But I don't see weakness when I look at you. I see someone who has survived what no one should." She blinked. Stunned by his words, her lips parted slightly. But no sound came. Ryan knelt down. Picking up one of the fallen armor plates, he turned it over in his hands. The inside was etched with cruel markings. More proof of her chains. He dropped it with a clang, the sound echoing through the bunker. His decision already forming. "I won't betray you," he said firmly, his eyes locking onto hers. "But if we're going to make it out of here alive, you'll have to trust me." Her breath caught. She studied him carefully, searching his face for lies, but all she found was a human soldier weary of war, carrying honesty in his eyes. At last she gave a small nod. "Then we are bound together now," she said quietly. Before Ryan could respond, a distant explosion rocked the ground. Dust falling from the ceiling, both of them snapped to attention. The war was still raging outside, and soon the search would come back toward them. Ryan slung his rifle over his shoulder, his voice sharp. "We can't stay here. If they sweep the area again, they'll find us." She tightened the cloth around her wound, her movements pained but determined. "Then where do we go?" she asked, her tone uncertain. Ryan looked toward the broken doorway, the night beyond glowing with fire and smoke. "Away from both sides," he said, his voice hard. "Your masters want you dead if they see you like this. My commanders will shoot first and ask later. We don't have allies out there. We only have each other." Her amber eyes widened slightly, the words hanging heavy in the air for the first time. The line between human and alien blurred. She picked up her blade, but she did not raise it. Instead, she held it close, as if it was the only piece of her old self she still trusted. "Then you have chosen," she said softly. "You stand with me." Ryan gave a short nod, his chest tight but resolute. "Yeah," he said. "I guess I do." The silence that followed was not the silence of enemies anymore. It was the silence of an unspoken pact. They moved together toward the doorway, stepping into the night. The battlefield still alive with distant flashes of fire, the air heavy with smoke and the smell of burned earth. Every step they took was dangerous, but now it was no longer one human against one alien. It was two souls carrying a truth too powerful to be silenced. As they made their way through the ruins, Ryan's thoughts churned. He had broken every rule of war by choosing her, but deep inside he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not victory, not safety, but purpose. The alien warrior limped beside him, her scars hidden beneath the shadows, her armor left behind in the bunker. Every step she took was an act of defiance against the chains that had bound her. Ryan glanced at her once, and in her amber eyes he saw it, the spark of freedom. Fragile but alive, the choice had been made. There was no turning back. Ryan gripped his rifle tighter, his voice a whisper carried into the night. "Whatever comes, we face it together." She looked at him, her lips curving into the faintest shadow of a smile. "Together," she echoed, and so, side by side, human and alien, enemy and ally, they stepped into the darkness of war, bound not by orders but by choice. The night was alive with fire and smoke. The battlefield stretched endlessly under the dim glow of burning wreckage. Ryan and the alien warrior moved quickly through the ruins, their footsteps muffled by ash and broken stone. Every sound felt louder in the silence between explosions. Every shadow seemed ready to betray them. Ryan carried his rifle tight against his chest, his eyes scanning the darkness beside him. She clutched her blade, her movements steady despite her wound, her breath harsh but controlled. Together they were not enemies anymore, they were fugitives. Hunted by both sides, the air shifted, the faint hum of machines growing louder. Ryan cursed under his breath. "Drones," he muttered. He grabbed her arm and pulled her down behind the remains of a shattered wall. Moments later, 3 hovering machines swept overhead, their searchlights slicing through the night. She pressed close to the wall, her amber eyes flickering as the beams passed dangerously near. "They're not just scouting," she whispered, her voice low. "They're hunting." Ryan frowned, his heart pounding. "Then we move," he said. They slipped deeper into the ruins. Weaving through collapsed buildings, Ryan led the way, but he kept glancing back to make sure she followed. Her steps were slower now, her wound bleeding again. He stopped suddenly and crouched beside her. "You're bleeding worse," he said, his tone sharp. "We need to stop it," she shook her head, her jaw tight. "No time," she muttered, but Ryan ignored her, pulling a strip of cloth from his own sleeve. He pressed it against her side. Her body stiffened at his touch, but she didn't pull away. Their eyes met for a brief moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then Ryan tied the cloth tight. "There," he muttered. "Good enough to keep you moving." She looked at him strangely, as if no one had ever cared enough to stop her bleeding before. Then she gave a small nod and whispered, "Thank you." Before Ryan could respond, the ground shook with the sound of heavy steps, the unmistakable thud of armored boots. His stomach sank. "Soldiers," voices shouted in the distance, distorted through helmets. "Sweep the area," one ordered. "No survivors." Ryan and the alien warrior exchanged a glance. They didn't need words, they moved. The ruins became a maze of shadows and fire. They ran low and fast, ducking through broken alleys and climbing over collapsed walls. But the soldiers were everywhere, their lights sweeping dangerously close. Ryan's pulse thundered in his ears. He had evaded death before, but never like this. Never with someone at his side who should have been his enemy. And yet when he looked at her, he didn't see an enemy anymore. He saw a reason to keep running. Suddenly, rubble shifted under his boots. He slipped, a jagged piece of metal catching his arm. He hissed in pain, dropping his rifle for a moment. Before he could recover, she was there, grabbing his arm, pulling him upright, her blade ready to strike at anything that came near. "You fall, I fall," she muttered fiercely. Ryan stared at her, his chest tightening at the words. But before he could speak, gunfire erupted behind them. Sparks showered across the ruins. They dove for cover, bullets slamming into the wall just above their heads. "We're trapped," Ryan growled, scanning for a way out. His eyes fell on a narrow passage between 2 collapsed towers, barely wide enough to squeeze through. "There," he pointed. They sprinted for it, bullets chasing them, debris exploding around their feet. The passage was tight, scraping their shoulders as they pushed through. But on the other side, the darkness opened into a wide courtyard. They froze, both gasping for breath. The courtyard was surrounded on all sides, the flicker of armored soldiers closing in. Ryan's grip on his rifle tightened, his eyes searching for escape. But there was none. She stepped forward, her blade glowing faintly in the firelight, her stance unshaken. "I'll hold them off," she said quietly. "You can still make it?" Ryan's jaw locked, anger flashing in his eyes. "Not a chance," he snapped. "I didn't come this far to leave you." Her eyes widened slightly, her lips parting as if his words had shaken her. But before either could say more, the soldiers shouted and advanced. Ryan raised his rifle, firing short bursts. Sparks lit the courtyard. The alien warrior moved with deadly grace, her blade cutting through the air. Together they fought, side by side, human and alien, their movements clashing but somehow fitting, each covering where the other faltered. The courtyard filled with chaos, bullets, blades, fire, but through it all, Ryan never left her side, and she never let him fall. Finally, smoke filled the air. More soldiers poured in. Ryan's rifle clicked empty. He cursed and reached for another clip. But before he could reload, she pulled him back, her breath ragged. "Too many," she said, her voice urgent. Ryan glanced around, his heart hammering, then spotted a collapsed tunnel beneath the rubble, dark and narrow but leading deeper underground. "This way," he shouted, grabbing her arm. They dove into the shadows, the tunnel swallowing them as gunfire erupted above. Crawling through the tight space, their breaths loud in the silence, Ryan felt his chest burn, his muscles ache, but he kept moving. At last, they spilled out into a dark chamber far below the battlefield. The air damp and heavy. Ryan collapsed against the wall. Panting, she leaned beside him, her blade still in her grip. Their eyes met in the dim glow, both battered, both alive. "We survived," Ryan muttered. Almost in disbelief, her amber eyes softened, and for the first time she whispered, "Because of you." Ryan shook his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "No," he said. "Because of us." The chamber fell into silence again. But this time it wasn't the silence of enemies hiding. It was the silence of allies, bound by fire and shadows, and as Ryan sat there, the weight of what they had done sinking in, he realized one truth. There was no turning back now. The underground chamber was damp and silent. Water dripped from the stone ceiling, echoing like a slow heartbeat. Ryan sat with his back to the wall, his rifle across his lap, his chest still heaving from the fight above. Beside him, the alien warrior leaned against the rock, her amber eyes glowing faintly in the dark, her body trembling with exhaustion. For a long time, neither spoke. Their breaths were the only sound in the heavy silence. Ryan studied her, her scars glowing faintly beneath the tattered remains of her armor, her hands still clutching her blade. But her strength was fading. Finally, Ryan broke the silence, his voice low but steady. "We can't keep running forever," he said. "Sooner or later, they'll find us again." Her eyes lifted to his, sharp yet vulnerable. "Then what do you suggest? Human?" she asked, her tone carrying both defiance and curiosity. Ryan leaned forward, his voice hard. "We stop hiding the truth," he said. "We show them what you really are. We show everyone." Her breath caught. Her body stiffened. She shook her head quickly. "No," she whispered. "If they see I will die. They will silence me before a word leaves my lips." Ryan's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with determination. "Not if I stand with you," he said. "Not if I make them listen." The silence stretched long. Her amber eyes searched his face as if trying to see if he truly meant it. And when she found only resolve, her lips trembled. "Why?" she whispered. "Why risk your life for me?" Ryan's voice softened. "Because I've seen what war does to people. I've seen it strip away names, faces, even souls, but when I look at you, I don't see an enemy. I see someone who deserves to be free, and if I walk away now, I'll never be human again." Her eyes glistened in the dim light, and for the first time her hand reached toward him, not to strike, not to defend, but to touch. Her fingers brushed his hand lightly, a silent bond stronger than words. Before either could speak more, a deep rumble shook the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling. The sound of armored boots echoed from above. They had been found. Ryan stood quickly, pulling her to her feet. "It's now or never," he said firmly. "We take the truth into the light." They moved through the tunnels, following the sound of voices until at last they emerged back into the open battlefield. Fire still burned in the distance. Soldiers from both sides surrounded the ruins, weapons raised, drones hovering in the sky. The moment they stepped into view, shouts erupted, rifles pointed at them. Orders barked in both human and alien tongues. Ryan and the warrior stood together side by side. "Drop your weapon. Captain Hale," a human commander shouted, his voice sharp. "Step away from the alien." From the alien ranks, another voice boomed. "Seize her. She belongs to us." The warrior's breath trembled, fear flashing in her eyes. Ryan glanced at her, then stepped forward, his voice loud, fierce, carrying across the battlefield. "No," he shouted. "She doesn't belong to you. She doesn't belong to anyone." Confusion rippled through the soldiers, their weapons still raised but their steps uncertain. Ryan turned, his eyes locking on the warrior beside him. "Show them," he whispered. Her hand shook, but slowly she nodded. With a deep breath, she dropped her blade, then she reached down and tore away the last pieces of her armor, the plates clattering to the ground, revealing her scarred body beneath, glowing brands burning across her skin. Gasps echoed from both sides. Soldiers froze, their eyes wide. "She's not your enemy," Ryan shouted, his voice carrying through the smoke. "She's a slave, all of them are." "This war isn't what we were told." The warrior lifted her chin, her voice breaking but strong. "We bleed like you," she cried out. "We feel pain like you. We were chained to fight. We were never free." Her scars glowed brighter in the firelight. The proof undeniable. Silence swept the battlefield. Weapons lowered slowly. Soldiers staring not with hatred but with doubt. Whispers spread like wildfire, and in that moment the war trembled. The commanders shouted, desperate to regain control. But their voices were drowned by the murmurs of soldiers who suddenly saw the truth. Ryan stepped closer to the warrior, standing firm, his voice calm but fierce. "The chains break today," he said, "because we stand together." The alien warrior turned to him, her amber eyes filled with something new. "Hope, real and alive," she whispered. "You've changed everything." Ryan shook his head, a faint smile on his lips. "No," he said. "We changed everything." The battlefield was no longer divided by human and alien in that single moment. It was divided by truth and lies, freedom and chains, and Ryan knew that nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again.